the Nobel Laureate, she did some writing, Nyanda Jen, and Tadaina, Jigda, Changden, the Tabzu Naya, Dagana she did all the Tabzu Naya, Langan, Mutun, the Shishunge, and Kuran Subudi, Subutirang, and then the peace junk, the lecturing, the Jubitary, and teaching on the top of the Kashishi, the Mina Tiranture, and the Kundus share, and the Lutus share, and Hasamara Shualia. And today, the peace jump, the Jiggy, Yang Jaji Soya Chumbari, Tamsala, and the Samalo Tadinang gave me a dash, Kasuri. Bad to Chambuche, that to talk to Chumbury and to chase a showing.
To the most esteemed and respected Nobel laureates who fight for the just cause of the humanity and peace, and also the participants here, the Nobel laureates, Mairead, Maquire, Jody Williams, and Shirin Ebadi, and also the organizers for this Peace Jam, the guests, the students. It is another occasion, great occasion, that I'm taking part in this Peace Jam. I'm really very thankful to all of you, the organizers, for their enormous effort. Thank you very, very much.
And Nobel laureate Kunasum, the Zede Yare, and Dennis Damsala Pea, going Yaburi, ready in the two championships those pebble. Just a mix it, that two sheets showing.
And my special thanks to the three Nobel laureates. Of course, you are in the midst of your busy schedule, and very difficult to come to Dharamsala on such a difficult path. So I'm truly express my deep appreciations and thanks to all the three Nobel laureates.
I'm quite sure this is the appeared the respected three Nobel laureates. I think that itself, at one sort of say, I think blessing to many young Tibetans. They got some kind of encouragement. So I very much appreciate, very much appreciate. You all spoke about peace, justice, compassion, and also mentioned the solidarity feeling with the Tibetan just cause. So I very much appreciate. I very much appreciate. Then, of course, you also mentioned praising me a little bit. That may be too much. So sometimes I really feel a little embarrassment. But thank you. As you know, I think when we met at different places, I think you already know my sort of way of thinking. It's just this is serving or making some contribution, not my own sort of name or something like that, but I very much appreciate. Now, as you mentioned, no matter how sort of sometimes Sometimes, the oh ho ho ho. Sometimes for temporary, the force of injustice is sometimes very strong, but as you mentioned, for long run, in the human society, the unjust act cannot remain forever. That's, as you mentioned, I think we witness 20th century, really, I think, a century of very, very important sort of part of human history, I feel. One way, during that period, as Vancouver, as are talking there, some specialists is mentioned, the 20th century, more than 200 millions of people killed, isn't it? So that century really becomes century of violence, century of bloodshed. Through that way, I think a human being, sometimes leadership may not sort of get that kind of experience, but people's level, I think the real sort of desire, peace, and strong feeling of fed up about violence, about bloodshed, that I think all over the world, I think that feeling, I think decade by decade increasing. So that's a fact. So I think because of the public sort of desire, peace, harmony, and freedom, justice, so all these change took place. Berlin Wall, so on, such things. I think because ultimately it is up to people. So not few individual leaders, sometimes due to short-sightedness, and sometimes unfortunately concern their own power, their own personal interest. So with that, sometimes say unrealistic sort of attitude, unrealistic policy sometimes happen. But these are, I feel, I think 20th century witness, these things are short period, cannot remain. So will change. So already 20th century, even in early part of 20th century and later part of 20th century, much differences. Those differences, I think, very, very positive change. So now this 21st century is simply a continuation of the 20th century. So naturally, I think within this 21st century, I think the world will become, I think, a better world, more peaceful, more compassionate. So now, ultimately, things depend entirely on the people. Now youth, most important part of the for the people. I often used to tell him, maybe you, I think half belong to 21st century. Maybe you also, I think. But my generation now belongs to the 20th century, now gone. So, our generation, my generation, now ready to say goodbye. So the younger generation, particularly you now, your younger generation, really belongs to the 21st century. So, what we learned from the past 20th century, I think violence is only destruction.
not really solve human problem through violence. More than 200 million people killed, but problems still remain there. And then these materials, machines to kill more than 200 millions, all these are wasted, isn't it? Beside human suffering, I think immense economies of the world today because of the lose. Wasted like that. And then I think our concept, as former Indian president mentioned, the ultimate sort of source of problem or basis of problem is the concept or feeling of I and me. I think that's very true. So of course selfish there, biologically speaking, selfish is there, something self-cherishing there. It is right. With that peace movement, all positive things come through cherishing oneself. I do not want to die. So through that way, we develop sense of concern of other. They also, just like me, do not want suffering, do not want to die. So through that way, we develop compassion. So the self-cherishing way, it's right. But extreme sort of selfish thinking is the problem. Extreme self-centered sort of attitude. That leads bully on other, exploitation on other, and killing other, abuse other. All these negative things come from extreme sort of self-centered sort of attitude. So now these the nations, they also, they're very much strong sort of feeling of we and they. There's big demarcation, they and we. And then, without hesitation, to attack on them, or bully on them, pressurize on them like that. So therefore, now, not only just morally speaking, but practically also, now world is something like one body. It is clear. Global economy, and also environmental issue, and many other issues. Now it is much better, much realistic. Work together. Consider rest of the world is part of we. We should expand the concept of we. Whole world should consider part of we. You see, no other people consider something isolate and not much sort of today related with my interest. That is the old thinking. According to old reality, yes, in I think century, say 18th century, 17th century, during this period, yes, more or less self-sufficient. And then destruction of your enemy is the victory of yourself. Now today, no longer that. As you mentioned sometimes, you see the economic pressure, because everything interrelated. So now much better work together, sincerely, not cheating way, but sincerely. For that, I think we must build a concept of we, consider whole world just part of we. So you, younger generation, now have tremendous sort of potential. Eventually, you get opportunity to make a contribution for promotion of the big we. Whole world, we Tibetan. Also, you see, we must think about the welfare or well-being of millions of Chinese, as well as Indians, as well as Nepalese, or all these people are same. Basically, within that, each of us have certain sort of identity, certain cultural heritage, certain language, different thing. These also, in order to build the common sort of we, I think each individual should have full satisfaction. Without that, we can't build the common interest or common we. So therefore, it is our right, you see, to carry our struggle for gain our own right, for preservation of our identity, our culture, our language, these things. Meantime, this must be related with the global thinking, or the common aim, including Chinese people, like that. That's, I think, very, very important. If we just one-sided look only Tibetan, and sometimes we get some kind of anger towards the Chinese, that's wrong. Long run, that's self-destruction. We must include all people, in particularly we usually call Central Asia. We must think about whole Asia. That's very, very important. That I want to tell you. So then, lastly, again, thank to 3 Nobel laureates. Now this time, only female Nobel laureates. So a Buddhist monk have the responsibility to thank 3 female Nobel laureates. Thank you very much.